everyone there's hope. There's hope for the hopeless. And what just is such an awesome thing to me is that he will entrust these precious wounded women to us. It's like, wow, you mean you do? It's like, because he doesn't just want to put them into a place, yeah, get drug-free and all that. But I mean, there's so much more.
Welcome to the Focus on the Family broadcast, helping families thrive.
Well, we're winding down Sanctity of Human Life Week, which is really a special time for us here at Focus on the Family. Today in Washington, D.C., the March for Life is happening. And we heard from Jeannie Mancini, the president of the March for Life, back at the beginning of the month. And we are honored to partner with her to be a voice for the voiceless as we stand for the value of human life at all stages, from conception to the grave. And that's one reason we're so excited about this coming May. Last May, we raised up the importance, the worth, and the dignity of life right there in Times Square with our Alive from New York event. And now, this coming May 9th, the Saturday before Mother's Day, we're doing it again. This time, we're calling it Alive 2020. And we'll be alive in Southern California, Dallas, Chicago, Atlanta, and South Florida with some amazing speakers and recording artists. The star of the show will again be the live 4D ultrasound of a baby, broadcast right on those massive digital screens.
And the intent is for you, along with tens of thousands of others, to be able to see that baby so clearly alive in the womb. Just click the link to register for this free event.
And along those lines, I can't wait for you to hear from our guests today. I met them last year at a Pregnancy Resource Center banquet that I spoke at, and I was blown away by their story. So I invited them to share with you their testimony today. And I'll tell you what, God is doing some amazing work at this facility, and not only to save babies, but to help women improve their lives.
It's a pretty awesome conversation we have for you. We spoke with Greta Henry, the director of Living Alternatives Pregnancy Resource Center in Champaign, Illinois. She's also the director of adoptions for the center and oversees their residential program for women called Mercy's Refuge. Joining her was Rain Pierce. She completed that residential program. Let's go ahead and pick it up now as Jim is welcoming these ladies.
Greta and Rain, welcome to Focus on the Family. Thanks for coming.
Thank
I know
you.
you're nervous, but it's okay. This is a great story. I know what people are about to hear, and I'm excited for them to hear it. And it's your story, both of you. And Greta, I want to start with you because as we talked when I was with you in Champaign, that sounds funny, but when I was there to speak, you shared that evening a little bit of your story, and that too was captivating. Talk about being that mom of that teenage girl that comes to you and says those words, Mom, Dad, guess what? I'm pregnant. That happened to you.
It did. It did almost over 18 years ago.
First of all, what is that impact like? In our culture today, this is not unusual. It happens. And how you respond in that moment as a mom or dad is so critical. What lessons did you learn in that moment? And maybe what are some of those things you would have wanted to do over?
Well, I learned a lot about, loving over the pain of what people say. It seems like that a lot of times you're so concerned about what other people are going to say. But my love for, and my husband and my love for our daughter was more than anything. And our hearts wanted her so badly to just, really repent and turn her heart towards Jesus. And she did.
Yeah. And Greta, again, this is going to touch literally millions of people will hear this, and there will be parents and there will be girls who will hear this because they're in that moment right now. And it's so important for them to hear your heart in that regard. Parents, we can make a big wrong step in this moment where it will potentially destroy your relationship with your daughter or maybe your son, depending upon which situation you're in. And I mean, very clearly, as we get going, I mean, we're just starting this now, and I know we're jumping in the deep end of the pool. But what is that advice for those parents? What would you say if you could grab the shoulders of that mom or that dad? Because tonight they're going to get hit with that comment that their teen daughter is going to come home and say, Mom and Dad, I'm pregnant. What should they do in that moment, in that very moment?
Wow. I would definitely, what we went through was we loved her. We were shocked, but we were at the point where we weren't going to just go ahead and be that way and just,
Kind of the conflict.
Right, yeah. Instead, we were praying that she would have her heart turned towards the Lord, that God would make a way where there seemed to be no way. And as far as what other people say, we guarded her, we protected her, because a lot of times Christian people judge so strongly. Mm-hmm. That's why abortion a lot of times within the Christian church is so much. They're so high. Right, yeah, it is so high. Because they don't want to have, their Christian brother or sister knowing about the pregnancy. So it's to love. We loved, but we put limits on. We drew lines.
Yeah. So you had boundaries.
And we had boundaries.
But that idea of expressing love in that moment is what is needed.
Right.
Because you have to create an environment where good decision making can occur. And that really did lead to you being asked about being the director of the clinic,
yes.
which I love. And this is a common story around the country with pregnancy resource centers. The women generally that are the executive directors that are leading them come from a point of pain, right?
Yeah.
And that's your story.
And I remember I was on the prayer team for like 10 years prior to becoming the director.
For the clinic.
For the clinic.
Praying for the girls coming in every day. I think that's beautiful. It's just like the Lord to say, I'm going to put you in training camp here. Yeah. Pray for this place.
And so it was really, I know, Hope Radliff was the director of the pregnancy center. And I remember the day I ran in there. I remember the day that I ran in there and said, my daughter's pregnant and I don't know what to do. And I ran to her. And she was just very loving and kind and was very, calm about it all. And, she ended up really guiding and leading me. And I can tell you the end of the story, but it's not the end yet, but I'll tell you the beginning of the end of the story in a little bit, if you'd like.
Well, sure. And the biggest point there, I want to fill in the blanks here for the folks listening. What are the services that certainly you offer there at the clinic, but generally that women can experience at clinics across the country?
Well, see, so many women, after I became the director there, they came in, and I know that God was placing moms and girls coming in, like a lot of them. And I was able to help them with that. We do the free pregnancy testing. We do the free limited ultrasound. We do also talk to girls about possible adoption. We give them, the choice. We tell them all the 3 different things when they're pregnant. The adoption, parenting, and abortion. And we explain all 3 of them so they can make a really informed decision about what they're going to do.
And in that context, that information, you're moving the girl to choose life. Everybody needs to hear that.
Absolutely, they need to see.
One of the great things, too, the folks that are listening, the donors that support the ministry, we made the decision years ago to provide support for free to the clinics, booklets and other things to help in that way. The ultrasound machines are a co-venture with the clinics.
Yes.
That's something that those listeners listening right now have helped to support over the years.
Well, we thank you, because in 2007, we did get one of your ultrasound machines, and it's changed our whole center since then.
You know what's amazing, John, and what's so critical for people to understand, it is so inexpensive to save a baby's life now.
Yeah.
We have this down to $60 to save a baby's life.
That's
amazing. And if you haven't supported Focus before, support us in this way. Why don't you save a baby's life today by sending a gift of $60?
Amazing.
I'm serious. I think it's one of the best investments in the kingdom of God.
Absolutely.
Let's start with saving a child's life.
I have to tell a story, if that's okay. There was a woman who came in, and she had a little baby in like a little car seat, and she had like 2 other children or so. And she says, I need a pregnancy test. and I need to have an abortion, she said. And so we said, okay, well, we'll go ahead and, get you a pregnancy test and ultrasound and stuff. So she went, had the pregnancy test. It was positive, and we went back, and the nurse did the ultrasound. And I happened to be able to be one that was in there to also observe, because we have two people in there when they have ultrasounds. And when the nurse put the probe on the mama's tummy, behold, there wasn't one but two babies in there.
Oh, man.
And the nurse and I looked at each other like, oh my goodness sakes. And she got up off the table, went and started talking to the nurse, and said, I can't kill two babies, she said. And so she ended up doing an adoption plan with pastors down in southern Illinois.
Well, that illustrates so perfectly the mission of all of us in the pro-life community. It's for a woman to choose life. There's so many options for them, and it is, I think, obviously the better choice. Women do have a choice to terminate the life of their child. But for the sake of that woman, for her life, to be able to say, I was able to give life to my baby. A day from now, and 10 years from now, and 50 years from now, you will be so much better off emotionally, spiritually, that you chose life for your child. Rain, let me bring you into the conversation here. You are really representing a young girl. You are a young lady. You have two children now. But you connected with the clinic, and I want people to hear your story, because that night that I was there speaking in Champaign, you shared, for just 5 minutes, and my jaw was open. And I think for a lot of people in the Christian community, we may hear of stories of trauma in a young girl's life, but I want to hear from your heart. I want to hear what you went through. I want to hear how the clinic made a difference and what the Lord has done in your life. So let's start with your teen years. Where were you? What was happening in your life? High school? What was going on?
Well, it was just me and my mom when I was growing up. My mom she was a single mom. She worked a lot, so I was pretty much by myself.
So what began to happen? What unraveled for you? Where were you seeking affirmation from? The people you hung out with? Describe that environment.
Well, thankfully my grandparents are always there for me, so they constantly were they were the ones that taught me things. My grandma, she went over everything with me, but I still was constantly wanting to be in the type of crowd that I wasn't supposed to be in. I always hung out with people older than me. I started smoking cigarettes because all the older people started smoking cigarettes. I wanted to go out and party when I was 13, 14, 15 because all of my older friends did it. I was always looking for something just to take my mind off everything. I was always running, always going. I never wanted to stay at home.
Well, there's a lot of pain at home, right? Dad's not there, and I know that communicates a message. We don't know the circumstances, but it hurts.
Yeah.
That, you're having to do this just with you and your mom wasn't in a healthy place and those kinds of things. You ended up, you have a boyfriend at some point. How old were you when you...
I met him when I was 16, and then we were just on and off. And then when I turned 17 is when I got pregnant with my son. And I was still in high school. I didn't even tell my mom. I was freaking out. I didn't tell anyone. No one knew.
You were freaking out, right?
Yeah, I was so scared that I wasn't eating. I lost a bunch of weight. I never even told my mom. Someone called my mother and told her. I still don't know who it was to this day.
Right. How did she react? What was her response? Not to...
Well, I remember because I was in high school. I came home and my mom was supposed to be at work and her car was there and my grandma's car was there, so I knew that they knew.
Yeah.
And I came inside and then my mom asked me if I was pregnant. I just started bawling. And then she freaked out and she went and sat outside. And then so my grandma talked to me and she called my Aunt Carrie over and she was very close with the Lord. And I was so scared that she came there with her Bible and I literally ran out the back door and tried to jump the fence.
To escape?
Yes.
But did that work or what happened?
No.
You came back, obviously.
I did.
And what was that conversation like? Not just with your aunt, but your mom and everybody.
Well, we all talked through it. My mom really, she got to the point where she knew there was nothing that she couldn't change what was going on, so she kind of just sat there, and everyone else talked to me, and everyone ended up being really supportive. They did ask me, at one point my mom asked me if I wanted to do an abortion, but that I didn't even think about it.
So you weren't quite there. But moving to the relationship with your boyfriend, I mean, that to me is where the story really is,
Yeah.
because it was abusive and, it was unhealthy.
He was great at first. He was my best friend. I was madly in love with him. Like, it was insane. We were very codependent on each other. When I look back on it, like, it was not healthy, even with that part. And then I had my son. He was there through the whole thing. And then it got, as like time went on, like, I noticed like he was just not himself anymore. And then that's when he was started doing drugs. And at first he would just talk down on me very badly, like just tell me how I'm going to be like my mom when I grow up, or I have to stay with him because no one else is going to want to be with me.
And that also involved then abuse. I mean, physically, he began to mistreat you.
Yeah, that's when, on my 19th birthday, it was actually my birthday party. He drank a whole bunch, and then he was really embarrassing. And then later on that night, his brother came over, and Jake had locked himself in the bathroom. And he's like, you need to go in there. So I remember I got a penny, and I opened the door, and he was in there doing meth.
Yeah, and you didn't know that up to that point.
No,
so
and
this
I,
was the
like, it just,
problem.
like, I was in shock. And then he picked me up, and he body slammed me on the kitchen floor. And then he left.
Yeah.
And then he came back, and I wasn't mad. I just remember feeling like I was just so, like, I couldn't believe that he did that.
Right.
Like, you're supposed to love me. How are you going to hurt me like that? So I wasn't angry. And then I made excuses for it because he had a bad childhood. So he didn't know how to do what he was supposed to do because of all that. He was abused when he was growing up, so that's just what he knows.
Right.
So
And
I made that all the time.
And that, that's understandable. Let me say to the listeners, if you're in that kind of situation, you need to get to safety.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the things we constantly talk about, and call us here at Focus for next steps that you can take. And it's so, so critical.
Yeah, and that number to reach our counseling team is 800-A-FAMILY. We do have a lot of resources and help for you, regardless of what you're struggling with, at focusonthefamily.com/broadcast.
In Rain, that abuse, that environment continued. How much longer were you with your boyfriend at that point? I mean, another year, another 2 years?
Well, the total amount of time I was with him was 6.5 years.
Right.
So, which before that first incident happened, like right after I had my son, that's when I started like taking pain medicine. And then,
You were taking pain medicine. That affected you.
yeah, well, because I got my first prescription after I had my son, and then it just was downhill from there. But then periodically, it wasn't real bad yet, but I was taking it. And then he would always throw that in my face as well. Like, I couldn't get mad at him because I was also doing something. So I just had to deal with it. And between those points, he had done a bunch of different scenarios. Like, he was constantly slapping me in the face. That was his favorite thing. He'd just slap me across the face.
Rain, who was in your life to give you perspective or balance or warnings, or who was in your life helping you? Or was there no one?
I didn't want anyone to know.
So you kept it quiet.
Yeah, there was a few incidents where my grandma would see marks on me, and I would say, "Oh, it was my dog," and then I got to the point where I was defending him so much that I started believing it myself.
Huh. Rain, it's a powerful story. I mean, this is so important because there are many young women living in this kind of environment where they don't know safe steps to take. How did you begin to come, in some ways, to your senses to say, okay, this is not healthy? First of all, let me say, make sure you feel it. I admire you.
Thank you.
Look at where you're at today. I mean, it gets tears in my eyes. This is a miracle. Really, one of the episodes I remember from your remarks, there was, I think, a drug dealer that recognized you, that your former boyfriend or boyfriend had crossed. What happened, and how did that become the triggering point for you to say, I need to get out of this?
I was so wrapped up in everything. At this point in my life, I was homeless. I was living in and out of my car. I was running around with gangs. I was doing, I was a completely different person than I am now and than who I was when I was raised. But I saw him, and I also wanted to buy some stuff for myself. So I went over there, and then he was asking me about Jake and asking where the money was. And I wasn't with Jake at that time, but he didn't believe me. So he grabbed my arms and floored it. He just pressed down on the gas, and we went down for two or three blocks. And then he finally let go of my arms, and then I I still remember hearing my head hit the street. And then I woke up in the hospital. I didn't know where my shoes went. I still don't know where my shoes went. And then I was there overnight. They ran a million tests. I was perfectly fine. My arm was broken. I had a concussion.
So you weren't fine.
Well, yeah, but I wasn't
Yeah.
And then I had road rash really bad. But they how long I
You
was
were hurt.
dragged. Yeah, it could have been a whole lot worse than it was.
And in that context, I mean, it brings you to your senses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where did you get connected then with Mercy's Refuge, Greta's organization?
I went out to Paxton, and I was staying with one of my friends, and then I stayed with my old neighbor from when I lived there. She still lived next door to my old house. And I remember one day I was sitting in the living room, and I just started crying, and I just started praying. I was like, Lord, I need you. I need something. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to feel this way anymore.
What sparked that? I mean, what in you
It just
had you turn to the Lord? Was it the influence of your aunt? Was it?
Because I always knew the Lord when I was growing up. He was always there. My mom we went to church, not all the time, but we still went there. I always knew about
Those
it.
little seeds made a difference.
It did completely. And I'm not a person that cries very often, and I was bawling. And then I ended up going to Mercy's Refuge and meeting with Nate and Greta. And then I was there. I moved in about a week later. I had my daughter's glitter suitcase. That was super small, and then a bag. And that was not even in my radar going out to Illinois, not even a little bit. And it was totally God got me there completely.
Yeah. Let me ask Greta to fill in some of this here. So rain comes. Fill in the blanks about just the 19-year-old, the 18-year-old, the 21-year-old. What would be typical when this girl walks in? Is she going to get help?
Okay, so she has to fill out an application, and she has to really want to change. The thing is that it's not just a place to lay your head for the homeless, even though a lot of the girls are homeless, but it's a place where you really want to change. You don't have to be a Christian, but there's going to be Christian stuff goes on there.
Sure.
And we have 2 programs. We have a lot of different things, but one of them is Ditch the Baggage. And I think that Rain enjoyed Ditch the Baggage. And also Freedom Group. Those are two different group things that we do with the girls where there's such freedom for them.
Yeah.
But there's different phases they go through. It's a process. From 6 to 12 months now they can live there.
Wow,
And,
that is great.
It's just amazing. This has been a dream of my heart and many others for probably 30 years.
Yeah, isn't that something? I appreciate
And when
that.
I hear Rain and I see her, it's like that's what it's all about.
It is.
It's all about that. There's hope for the hopeless, and that God, what just is such an awesome thing to me is that He will entrust these precious wounded women to us. It's like, wow, you mean you do? It's like, because He doesn't just want to put them into a place, get drug-free and all that. But I mean, there's so much more than that. And He entrusts us and says, I trust you with them.
Yeah.
I believe that there's freedom for these women. And we've seen it again and again.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, we've seen some freedom that it's just mind-blowing.
Rain, when you hear Greta speaking this way, I mean, tears in her eyes for you. How does it make you feel? I mean, what?
It makes me feel really good. One of the main things that I liked about Mercy's Refuge was Nate and Greta and the staff there, they don't look at it as a paycheck or a job, which at the facilities that I've been at before, that's what it was to them. They genuinely care and they love us. They want to see us succeed. They don't judge us at all. You were just Greta feels like she's my second mom.
Boy, that's a great statement.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful statement.
She really does.
We've heard a lot of your pain. I mean, the stuff that you went through as a teenager is tough stuff. But you seem to be doing really well. Mm-hmm. Describe that for us. Where are you at today? How are your kids?
Well, I graduated from Mercy's last month. I moved out of there. I completed the whole program. I was there for a year. So I moved out of there into my own apartment, and then I had a great full-time job. And then about a month ago, I just moved back to Indianapolis to be with my kids full-time. And I'm working at a veterinary place.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm basically like a vet tech that didn't go to school.
My
It's
wife
great.
was a vet tech.
Yeah.
That's great.
I love animals. I've always loved animals.
Oh, that is awesome. Obviously, the Lord is going to continue to work in your heart, and that relationship for you has made a difference in your life, right?
Mm-hmm. Big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
And you know he loves you, and you're making that change. And Greta, thank you. When I look, John, when I look at all of us, let me speak to the whole listenership. This is where our Christian faith is taking action.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't say these good words so they'll honor your Father in heaven. It's do these good deeds. And that's what people have done in your life. And you're the product of God's love. I mean, you are starting to change, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty fresh, too. It's just, a year, 2 years ago that these changes began in your life. So we want to stay in touch with you. We want to continue to do what we can do. I know Greta and the team there in Champaign are going to do the same thing. And we're just very optimistic for what's ahead in your life. And I want to say thank you for sharing some really painful stuff
Oh, yeah.
so people could hear what it's like.
I'm glad some good can come out of it.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for being with us.
And I want to say thank you for Focus on the Family for all that you've done all the years.
Well, thank the listeners. They do it.
I
It's
know
the
it.
support
I'll
they
tell
provide.
you. Thank you.
What a moving conversation with Greta Henry and Rain Pierce. And pregnancy resource centers are doing fantastic work in the name of the Lord to save the lives of both babies and mothers.
They are, John, and that's why here at Focus on the Family, we partner with centers like Greta's. Through our Option Ultrasound program, we're able to provide ultrasound machines and resources to save those babies. And I said this in the conversation, it takes only $60 to save a baby's life through Option Ultrasound. And you can be part of it. We need you to be part of it. Support your local pregnancy resource center and support Focus to save a baby's life. Let's do it together. Let's put our faith into action so more young women like Rain can be helped, can be saved, and most importantly, their babies' lives spared.
And since the beginning of that program, Option Ultrasound services and machines have been placed around the country. And that's resulted in what we estimate, Jim, to be 440,000 babies saved.
Hey, John, we realize not everyone can afford to send a gift of $60, but we can send something. And I hope you'll do that. And that will combine with other gifts from other partners. So together, we'll help to provide those trainings and those ultrasound machines to these medical clinics, especially in high abortion communities. So donate today.
To do so, just give us a call. Our number is 800-A-FAMILY, 800-232-6459, or just click the link on the screen below. Well, on behalf of Jim Daly and the entire team here, I'm John Fuller, thanking you for joining us and inviting you back when we once again help you and your family thrive in Christ.